Okay, thank you. All right, hopefully Jeff and Stuart join us, but I guess just get started so you have as much time as you can have, Ken.
Yeah, probably get started because we got as much time as we have. I can go there. Okay, comes to that. Okay, today we're answering a bunch of, when we looked at all the questions that some of you submitted early in the semester, we grouped them into categories and melted them down and put them together. So today's session, the takeaway is I can adapt my lessons to meet the needs of students with varying language abilities.
You don't have to stay, just come back when we're done. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And so the three things that we're going to do that can help us get to adapting lessons. The first is I can define the term mixed level class as used in the Gnomon Global context. Okay, so think about that. Think about mixed level and what it means to you, because we're going to talk about that in a minute. I can identify the general needs of my students by performing a simple, informal needs analysis in my own classes. So if you've never done a needs analysis before, this will be a very simple and easy one to do. Then finally, I can implement strategies, and this is what you'll be able to do at the end of this thing, is to implement strategies to help me adapt my lessons to meet the needs of my students. So now, and this again is my cheap version. What the heck is that?
No.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, it's my cursor. However, did I do something here?
No.
No.
Wait, whose account is this?
This is mine.
Or the login?
Yeah,
Mine.
Did you log into morning or night, Ken?
I didn't even look.
Okay.
So it's probably morning
The
still.
morning one is a little wacko because it's
Okay.
like.
All right, well, that's okay. So, but I don't, yeah, we'll see how this works. Can I do anything with this? Okay, well, we'll adapt. Because we're going to be adapting our lessons anyway, so we'll adapt.
There you go.
And we'll just, if we can make it delete. There we go. Okay, so I can define the term mid-level class. This is mixed level class. This is the first one we're going to be working with. So, as I was asking you to think about mixed level classes, what is your normal thought about mixed level?
What do you think that means?
Yeah,
Different levels of ability.
okay.
And just like different levels in the class that
Okay.
means everyone's at a different place.
All right. So we have two ways that we can look at this. One is where we combine two levels together, like our PEW courses were designed to have like levels 2 and 3 together for the intermediate.
So this may be a really stupid question, but are they actually two combined then?
No, they're
No,
not.
No,
they're not.
okay, because I thought they were.
They used to be, but it was causing consternation in the schedule, so they are no longer.
Okay.
But it's the same material, levels 2 and level 3,
Oh,
level
same.
4 and level 5, same exact lesson.
And for the level 4, you adapt it down a little bit. For the level 5, you adapt to it, either moving up in challenges for them or keeping it where it is. So there is the PEW classes and some electives will get combined from time to time. And so that's one meaning of mixed level classes. We don't normally mix our levels, although PEW was designed that way, and we didn't call them levels 2 and 3, we just called it intermediate, and called levels 4 and 5 advanced. And level 1 is by itself as a beginner because we don't want to mix level 1s with anybody else.
Ones are kind of already mixed with zeros anyway.
Yeah. So, the other meaning for mixed level classes is, a class where we have all level 2 students that have been placed in level 2 or level 1 or level 5 or whatever it is. But there's a continuum from, the beginning of a semester for one level 2 person, that level 2 person's semester, and someone who's at the end of their semester. And there will be a kind of a big, it's not a big, but it's big enough that you can sometimes find differences there. So that's the 2 types of mixed classes. But mostly we're going to be talking about the mixed level class where we have everybody's in the same Gnomon Global level, but there are differences in abilities. When we have tests, most of our analysis is done, and this is just to illustrate student ability levels. There's a model that we use to look at the test in terms of student ability, and it has ability levels in the same level, but we can have an ability level anywhere from a -1 to a +5, so it varies across.
So just below level and like above level.
Okay. Actually, sorry, keep going. I'll have to go.
Oh, go ahead.
Wait,
What's
how is that determined or like?
Oh, that's just a metric that we use to make sure that that our test items are where they're supposed to be, they're performing at the right thing, and that the student ability, that we would expect low students to be low scoring students and high scoring students and high scoring students, and in that ability range.
Okay.
And that mix happens for a couple of different reasons. If Ken doesn't talk about it, I can talk to you about it.
Okay. Which is, what were you talking about there?
Oh, just the reasons that the reasons that we end up with mixed ability levels in one level.
Yeah. Well, most of that just has to do with how the placement test works. Okay, so let's take and this is all there is to the first, our first objective, which is being able to define the levels. And what mixed level means. Do you have that okay, or do you need more? Seems pretty clear. All right, so moving on. Okay. All right, I can identify the general needs of my students by performing a simple informal needs analysis in my own classes. So, when you think of a needs analysis, what do you think this needs analysis would look like in your head if you're trying to figure out what do your students need in this mixed bag of abilities? Think about that for just a second.
Do you guys know what that is, a needs analysis?
Yeah.
It's a test that assesses the needs of your students. They're also called diagnostic tests sometimes.
This isn't even going to be a test.
Well, were the self-checks that we have in some of the courses be the same thing?
Those self-checks, they let the students, if they're really honest about it, know where they stand. It gives them kind of an idea of what they know and what they don't know. What they know, what they know, they don't know. Okay, so, you're still in school, Kylie?
I'm in Binghamton Hall.
Okay, but you're still
You're still in college.
in college, yeah. Okay, so what's your major?
English teaching.
English teaching. Okay. Why did you select that?
Because I've wanted to be a teacher since I was like 15.
Mm.
Okay. Okay, And when you finish your degree, what are you gonna do? What are your plans after you get
I
out?
want to teach middle school, so we shall see where that.
Okay, all right. All right, so how does teaching here help you, do you think, with maybe teaching middle school at some point?
Well, the ages are definitely different for middle schoolers, but like classroom management has helped definitely learning about that here. Yeah, I think my students are definitely older, but they act similar to middle schoolers sometimes.
Juvenile enough that it
Yeah,
gives
they're
you an
like,
idea.
teacher, I didn't turn this in, I'm so sorry. I'm like,
Every adult is a kid at heart.
yeah, I definitely feel that.
You ask my grandkids and they'll say that I'm sometimes younger than they are. Okay, Hiram, how about you?
Why, sorry, what was the
Okay,
question?
the first question is, well, are you still in school or did you graduate?
So I still need one thing graded and then I'll graduate.
But you have officially just graduated, right? Or is
Well, that's the
ostensibly?
thing, officially I need to have this thing graded to graduate, but it's all turned in, so I've done
Okay.
everything.
Okay, so what's your field?
History.
History. Why did you choose history?
I want to be a professor someday.
Okay, all right. And how does working here fall into your future plans?
Well, I think I would have to agree, like classroom management is a big part of it, just kind of having that teaching experience and getting really quickly realize what the difficulties are. I'm also like identifying problems that I've had that I've perceived in the classes I've taken, so I can tell where there's overlap between like college level teaching and this type of teaching.
Okay. And how would this particular instruction today, learning how to adapt to mixed level, how would that help you in your future?
I think there's always mixed level students, no matter what. So I think it's kind of that universal principle.
Okay. Kylie, what about you?
I actually want to go into administration one day too, so I wanted this classroom experience because I've been to like different schools and they do things differently, and there's always like this thing called pod time where they separate, like they make the kids that haven't finished their homework do homework, and then there's the kids who already finished, they get to play. And so it's just like, that's always bugged me because it's like, it's good, but it's not good. So that's like what mixed level classes, I wanted to see like how I could like help all the students, not just the ones that like being.
So, good, okay, well, thank you. Let's move on a little bit to see how what we just did was related here. If I can push the right button. There we go. All right, so this is a very informal needs analysis that you can do in your classroom. And it's interesting for other members of the class to hear what others are looking at, but you know, why are you learning English? Or what's your next step when you leave Nomen Global? Those kinds of, any kind of question that gets to why they're here will help you a little bit focus on how to help them, because that is their main goal. Their main need is to reach that goal. Of course, there's a lot of little things in between, but this is one way just to get a feel for, and it's very general, as I said, it's not specific. So, and then to be able to relate that to whatever it is they're doing right now, which is why I asked you those questions, for you to relate that back. So it makes a little bit more sense to the students, even if it's, you know, yeah, well, I want to go on to college. And then you say, well, we're talking today about this. How does that relate, do you think, to your future goals? So, okay. So basically show how today's lesson will affect their tomorrows, you know, help them with that, with their tomorrows. Okay, so that's our second little objective, which is really quick and it's really very informal. But I would encourage you to try that out in your classes, to find out, what your students need on a general level. You can also talk with them about this specific thing that you're going to be teaching and ask them what they know about it. Just ask around. Eventually we'll get diagnostic tests up front in most of the curriculum so that we can have an idea, and the students can have an idea of what they know and what they don't know, and then they can see their own improvement when they take the final test, how that goes. Okay, so we get down to, I can adapt my lessons to meet the needs of students with varying language abilities, and that keeps sinking. I don't know what it's thinking about, but, okay, so what do we mean by adapt? Well, here's a bunch of synonyms. Modify, alter, change, and adjust. And too often we think about adjusting down, but we don't think about adjusting up. Augment, convert, enhance, simplify, or tailor what you have in the way of materials to fit with your students. And I will be just suggesting some strategies here. If I can get, do that. Just a second. Okay. So what I'd like you to do before we go into these 3 simple strategies is, let's all together, we might as well just put all our experience together. What are some strategies that we can use to adapt our lessons? Things that you can think of, things that we can think of. Maybe they'll be part of this list, maybe they won't.
Or things that you have done, because I'm sure
Yes,
you've had to
yeah,
in lessons.
Well, here's the thing, we all have strategies. Our students have definite language learning strategies that they come with. They may not be the best. And often studies indicate they're not. They're terrible strategies, most of them. And even we, as we go and learn a new language, we will bring with us our preferred strategies that don't work, but we keep using them anyway. So what have you done to adapt the lesson? Or what can you do? Yeah.
You probably had to adapt a lesson down, would be my guess. Much more than up, but down. So how would you simplify a lesson? That's another way to say it.
I don't know if this is adapting, but like I have them teach each other sometimes and go into groups because I think they learn well from their peers, especially if they can't figure out words or something. They can speak to each other in language.
It's absolutely adapting.
That is adapting, absolutely, yep.
I think sometimes with the level 6 class, I've had to adapt up a little bit. Because I think sometimes I can sort of tell that most of the students are kind of very much, it's a little bit too simple for them, because they've been there a while.
Yeah.
Although, so like for example, when we were talking about inferences, like I introduced another, like a poem and had them like do a little bit more detail inferences rather than one of the other examples, which I thought might be a little bit, just like ask a question that everyone knows the answer to, you know?
Good. That's another way to adapt. And how did you arrive at that? Was it at the spur of the moment, it just inspiration came to you, or did you think ahead about it, or?
I can't remember. It might have been spur of the moment when I was like, oh, I can totally use this poem, and I think this would be something that would help them. Yeah.
Yeah. You can only do spur of the moment things if you actually have some ammunition in
Yeah, right.
you know, some tools in your backpack. Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to know if you will need to,
Mhm.
right? Because like with some of our students, when you're lesson planning, you can look at it and go, okay, this is gonna be hard for them. But sometimes if you've not taught them, the conditional before and grammar, you have no idea if that's gonna be hard enough for them. And so you might have to adapt on the fly. I find myself adapting on the fly more often than having anticipated needing to adapt. I can share something.
Sure.
Something that I do pretty commonly is to adjust the amount of something.
Mhm.
So if I have a student who's a little bit lower and getting one sentence out of them is as difficult as getting 4 sentences out of someone that's a little bit higher, I'm going to adjust the limit for them.
Mhm.
Same thing with, I've had students before that need the foundation in a different class, so they're in all of the whatever level 4 classes, but their speaking ability is more like a 5. I have them do something longer or more because they are able to do that. That's a good way to adapt.
What do you mean by you have them, like, are you talking about assignments, like, are you?
So sometimes let's use grammar as an example. Sometimes in the grammar activities, they ask you to have students write 2 sentences per question, right? If I have some students that are really low, I might only have them do 1 sentence per question. If I have a student that's really high, I might ask them to do 4 sentences per question. Does that make sense?
So how would you communicate that
I
to them?
just tell them.
So you just say like, hey, you.
Well, I would say like typically it's not like a bunch of people are higher. It's
Okay,
usually like
yeah,
one person
sure.
is lower or higher. So I might say, okay, we're gonna change the directions. You guys are gonna do one sentence and then I usually would walk over to the higher person individually and go, and because it's not hard for you, I would like you to do this.
Okay.
Or I'd like you
Yeah.
to teach this to your neighbor or something.
Sure.
Make it a more difficult task for them.
Yeah.
But try not to call them out individually. Yeah,
Sure.
that's a good strategy.
I feel like if it's on Zoom, you can tell them, okay, we're gonna do like 2 sentences, but if you finish early in like the 5 minutes that you give you, then go ahead and do some more.
Yeah.
Now, how do you know they finished early?
It's up to them. It's on Zoom, so
Sorry.
I don't know how exactly you would.
There is a function in Canvas called monitor this,
Moderate
moderate this
Yeah.
thing.
quiz.
That's only
Yeah,
if they
this-
submit it though.
It is.
Yeah.
So
Is it only
often,
if they submit it?
Often I'll ask students when you're finished, submit. And then if I want them to do something additional, I'll have them do it in the chat so that I can see it.
Needs to be more like Big Brother where you can see
A
them
little
typing.
bit, yeah.
See their screens.
Yeah.
Violate
Well,
their
I've
privacy.
I've seen some teachers actually go to their Canvas, do the moderate. I'm sitting observing, and they'll say, oh, so-and-so, you need to do a couple more. So they haven't submitted yet. So I don't know what they're doing then, but that
Who was
seems.
doing it?
I've seen Andrea. Who else?
Annette, probably.
Yeah, Annette, and a couple others, but I can't remember.
We'll have to look at it. My guess would be that they're looking at it after the fact, because
Might
students
be,
have
but-
more than one attempt, so they can go back in and do it again.
Mhm.
But if they can
And that
teach me
could be-
something about Canvas, I would love to.
Yeah,
Something
Okay.
else you just reminded me, Kylie, I'll say one more thing really quick, that adjusting the time can be a good way to adjust it up and down. So if you have lower level students, give them more time. If you have upper level students, give them less time. That time pressure can really make the task more or less difficult.
when
Do you
you,
mean giving different students different amounts of time?
No, I would have, you would have to do as an entire
Oh.
class, yeah.
but effectively, by requiring fewer sentences from a lower level and more sentences from the higher level,
You're
you are
essentially
adjusting the
restricting
time.
time, yeah.
That's true.
Okay, thank you for those. You guys know a lot more than you think you do. I think the next time you're gonna have to put it back on the slides, because this is,
That's the angle.
yeah.
You can feel the teacher's pain. All of the lecterns are angled like this.
Okay. Well, one strategy that we didn't talk about is, about all that was mentioned earlier, is about simplifying instructions. Okay, for example, Carefully read each sentence below and determine its subject and predicate. Then underline the subject once and the predicate twice. How can you simplify this? Just think about it. I'll ask you. Okay, what do you think the first thing should be? If you had to make this, so let's say turn it into 3 simple sentences.
I mean, I can tell you what I would do, Ken.
No, don't. Yeah. So what would you do? Just with the first sentence.
I mean, I would for sure change the determine to find. I'm not sure if they might understand carefully, so I would change find for sure.
Okay. Kylie, how about you? What would you do?
Maybe I would bullet point it and like read, like first read the sentence, and then the second bullet point would be like, find the subject and predicate, and the third one would be like, read it, somehow.
All right. Ashley, what would you do?
I would have them do the tasks one at a time.
That's good.
So I would say, okay, find the subject, start with that. Then find the predicate, okay? Now we need to go back through and underline the subjects. Now we need to underline the predicates, because it's a lot easier to handle in chunks than it is
Yeah.
all together, right? Because that's how I would have to handle it mentally,
Yeah.
even as a teacher.
I would definitely like explain, like review what
Mhm.
everything is as I do that too.
So there is more than one way to feed a cat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being hyper politically correct there. You could simplify it also by saying, read each sentence. Okay. And then you can even do that. Okay, read each sentence. Okay, put 1 line under the subject. Put 2 lines under the predicate. And of course, we want them to know, again, what the subject and what the predicate is. But simplifying it, however you decide to do it, is often necessary. Because most of our objectives most of our instructions are written in teacherese.
And the objectives too.
And the objectives too, yeah. So,
I feel like this is also hard online because we don't have underlining tools for double underlining.
yeah.
So I might also adjust it in Canvas where I would say like bold the subject and underline the predicate or something, because there's not
Yeah.
like a double underline tool in those text boxes.
Yeah.
So you can adjust it that way too to make it possible, or put
Yeah.
it in red and
And I
bold,
think-
whatever,
That's an artifact of the fact that everything used to be
on paper.
on paper.
Yeah.
You know.
That's a struggle.
And now it's not, but we didn't get to that. Pressing the wrong side. Okay, so one strategy is to simplify the instructions. Another, in adapting your lesson, another, mix it up. And Kylie brought this up already. Small group activities are a valuable tool. And there's there are probably as many different ways to mix groups as there are students in the class. But one is to, if you decide to group the same ability level together, like all the lower ones together, all the mid ones together, and all the high ones together, then assign each group different goals. You know, the ones that are lower might not have as complex a task as the ones that are at the high end. But that's one way to do it. In my opinion though, grouping the different ability levels together, whether it's a pair where one is higher, one is lower, works well because if you think Vygotsky, are you familiar with
Were you,
Liv?
okay.
He wasn't here for that.
He wasn't, so let me crash course you on Vygotsky. Vygotsky talked about this as a review for me, so Ken, the teacher, can tell me if I get it wrong. He was a linguist who had theorems about the zone of proximal development, which basically means if you think of like three concentric circles, like the biggest one would be like it's just out of their reach, it's above their ability to do it. The middle one is with help, with support, like a teacher or a student who already understands it, they are able to do the task. And then the smallest one is it's something they are already able to do. So that middle circle would be the zone of proximal development, where it's possible, but they need support to get it.
Oh, yeah, and you want to kind of keep them
Keep it
in
there, yeah. Otherwise, it's impossible or too easy.
And by consciously thinking about how you're going to group students or put them in pairs, the higher level students can actually do some of the teaching to the lower level students. And the lower level students are aspiring to get higher, so they're a little bit more motivated to do that. So the first strategy, simplify the instructions. Second strategy, mix it up. And the third strategy, which I think is very, very important, is, yay, I did it right. Focus on communication. Okay. So when we've modeled something, we've explained something, it needs to be followed up by some kind of hands-on practice. Now in grammar, they have the different exercises from, just everything is just totally focused and there's only one right or wrong answer, all the way up to communicative practices. But as much as possible, and this is where adaptation really comes in, supplement with games and interactive activities. There's something called TTT, which is teacher talking time, and STT, which is student talking time. And actually, you could maybe talking should be production time, whether it's written or whether it's speaking. But there should be 30% teacher talking time and 70% student talking time. So, for example, okay, so you use some kind of game or interactive activity, or you could, but you want to simulate real life situations where possible. And, like if you use a video, like you use, what is that?
The Pixar shorts.
Pixar shorts, yeah. Elicit from your students, like if you were doing the conditional, and I'm pretty sure that's what you did, was elicit from them conditional, things that were conditional after they watched the video.
So that happened this morning, and we were doing the communicative task and it was over their heads, and it was like, okay, come up with something on the fly here. So I pulled up a video where there's two characters that are playing off of each other and they're causing things to happen. So I would pause it at a certain point and I would give them the if clause, so like if the rabbit eats the carrots, and then they had to give me the result clause in one of the four tenses of the first conditional. And then after they had that pattern, I had them give me the whole sentence in the first conditional.
Okay. And that's a perfect example of adapting using this. And if we could put a real life situation into it, I don't know, with conditionals, you are a medium, and you are going to be talking to a client, and this is what you see in your brain, this Pixar video you see in your brain. Now using these prompts, or which is what you did. Make the prediction on the other end.
Okay.
Something like that. It takes a little bit of your own creativity to do that. Or, turn these sentences into negatives. How often does somebody come up to you and say, hey, I'd like you to turn these sentences into negative? Or
In
Or-
real life.
in real life, yeah. But if you have a list of sentences, in fact, you may have to create them, something like, you're a teenager, and your mom has left a note on the refrigerator of things that you need to do. And, it has a whole bunch of things like clean your room, take out the trash, vacuum the floor, dust the furniture, or you don't get to go out tonight. Write an answer to your mom, telling her the things you're not going to do.
You won't
You
do.
won't do. Yeah.
I will not dust. I will
Yeah.
not vacuum.
And if they're more advanced, they can elaborate on the reasons, make excuses why. Those kind of things. So that's basically it. And so that's the third of our three little takeaways for adapting. So what was the first thing? The first objective, the first,
Identify mixed level classes.
okay, yeah, kind of define what mixed level is. Okay, and how do you think you did with that? Yeah, do you have an idea of that?
Yeah,
On a scale of 1 to 10?
9.
Kylie?
About the same.
All right, I'm probably there too. Okay, what was the second target that we wanted to hit? Okay, the needs analysis. So what did you get from the needs analysis part?
That was not as complicated if I would be. And it's just like asking your students questions and then helping them like see how that relates to what they're like experiencing in life or real.
Good. And then the third one?
Focus on communication.
It's right there.
You
Right?
have to look.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And that's, so that was your takeaways from today, and I encourage you to, put those into your repertoire and use them. Thank you for your participation, thanks
Thank
for coming.
you.
Thank you.
Because I will forget, I'm punching out now.
Man. Actually, I'm so sorry. I feel like I forget every day. I
Oh,
gotta
it's
get
okay.
better.
You remind me to clock out every night, it works out.
Do you forget to punch out?
No, I actually don't forget to punch out. I forget to punch in.
Oh, well, I feel better already.
Okay.
I feel half better, because I always forget to punch out.
Uh-huh.